Good afternoon. My name is Peter Karen. I'm one of your three selectmen here in town. And today we're with Mr. Rooney, Bill Rooney from the superintendent's office at DR. We thought it was important that you be aware of who he is, what he does, and what the future holds for our school system. One of the things I was just congratulating him on, maybe you can explain it a little bit more before we get into our questions, is the recognition you received from the state.
Actually, it's a national,
National.
business publication. Business View magazine
Yep.
is going to make an announcement, I think in late October or early November, that Dayton Rehoboth is going to be recognized as one of the best managed school districts in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
awesome.
So yeah, we're really excited about it. It's obviously a testament to the support that we receive from both of our towns and from our school committee,
Yep.
and I'm blessed to have a fantastic team.
Sure. I think it has a great reputation in town. We don't get complaints. We don't handle those kind of complaints when somebody says, well, you can imagine.
Yes.
But we do feel that we support the schools, budgets aside. I don't think anybody is concerned about the quality of teaching that comes out of, in the education that comes out of the school
I would agree.
department.
I would agree. It's top notch for
Yes.
sure. For sure.
Since you started, well, let's get right into the questions. So that
Sure.
One of the things that we always ask everybody is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today, which is obviously the superintendent of this massive school system.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I do want to thank you and the selectmen and also the team here at Dayton Cable for having me. I'm proud to say that I'm a lifer in terms of
Yep.
education. Getting ready to start year number 38.
Wow.
And, for the last 3, I've had the honor of being superintendent here in Dayton Rehoboth. And I'm very proud to say that the school committee wanted me back for another 3 years.
So they signed a new
So
contract.
so I'm here
Good.
through at least 2028, and emphasis on at least. I came to this role after working as a teacher, a coach, an assistant principal, and most recently as principal of 2 outstanding schools in Attleboro, Bishop Feian and Attleboro High School. And my philosophy, especially as the leader of the district, is to be as visible, accessible, approachable, and communicative as possible.
Yeah, that's great. When I was with a previous job, one of the things that the president of the company, Bill Marriott, had 4 glass walls as his office, and his door was always open.
Yeah.
And anybody from the lowest person in the company to another vice president could certainly go in and talk to him at any time.
Yeah.
And I've heard that about our school system, that nobody is, not that you can't always get in touch with somebody, but they'll follow up, which is a great way to run a school system.
Well, I mean, the taxpayers are our customers,
Sure.
and customer service is huge.
Yes.
So one of the benefits of having central office inside of the high school is that that's one of the 5 buildings that we get a chance to be visible and accessible
Yep.
every day. But my assistant superintendent Fred Souza and I are committed to being in at least one of our other buildings every other day, and
Yeah. That's cool.
there are a lot of times where we're in every building, at least briefly, every week.
Cool. You obviously have a job description that you have to do, and the touring of the schools, the building of the new school possibility. And have you ever thought of moving your office to a more central location, or you cramp for space, especially at the high school?
Right.
I don't know if that could be used for something else, but building the possibility of a new elementary school, is that something you would consider moving your office?
Well, we definitely have had conversations about moving out of the high school. Obviously, that would come in consultation with the school committee.
Yep.
But as we're looking to increase the number of CTE programs that we have at the high school, spaces at a premium. I've appeared before the selectmen before, and I've been asked about, exploring the possibility of having all of our district 8th graders come to the high school.
Right.
Again, that would be something that would have to involve a lot of community input, would have to involve a lot of conversation with both boards of selectmen, and ultimately would rest with the school committee.
Sure.
But being somewhere other than at the high school is something that we're always open to.
Yeah.
As we work through, knock on wood, the Dighton Elementary project, if it comes to fruition, the only drawback with trying to incorporate central office into a new building or a renovated building there would be that those spaces would not be reimbursable. So,
okay. I wasn't aware of that.
and so that would be something that I don't think would be a cost-effective measure.
Okay, right. Yeah, who would have even thought? One of the first questions that we have is, what is your vision for our school district? And what specific goals do you have for the next few years? Obviously, we know the elementary school is high on that list, but what else do you have?
Right. Well, I feel very proud of the fact that in the first 2 years, we did a tremendous amount of work, both in the district and also in both of our communities, to build a new strategic plan. As someone who's been very successful in business yourself, if you don't have a plan,
That's right.
you're destined for failure.
Yep.
And driving toward 2030, which the DR is certainly a play on words there, but our driving toward 2030 strategic plan is rooted in empowering our staff so that they have the supports to ignite curiosity, ignite learning in our students. Because we have a responsibility to shape the future of the students, but also as the leader of the district, I have a responsibility to shape the future of the district.
Right.
So our 5-year plan is definitely rooted in driving toward 2030. As I look towards 2035, a 10-year plan, I think that our facilities definitely need to be evaluated. And when
Right.
I say that, I'm talking about all 5 of them.
Sure.
Our high school has tremendous opportunities for our students. And our residents are very fortunate that they have wonderful options for their students to choose for high school.
Yep.
I've got tremendous respect for what goes on at Bristol Aggie, what goes on
Sure.
at Bristol Plymouth. The biggest issue with our high school is we don't have the curb appeal. And so
Wow.
if there are ways that that we can work with the school committee, work with the towns to possibly find ways to refurbish the high school, then I think people will see a more appealing product
Right. Who would've
at face
thought?
value.
Yeah. Nobody thinks of the shell. It's strictly what you get out of it.
Right.
But yeah, it's no different than buying a home. If people pull up to your school, and certainly you guys do a great job maintaining the grounds. It shows that people are care about
Right.
the facilities, but when you're competing with the likes of Bristol Aggie and Bristol Plymouth, the both fairly new, well, Bristol Plymouth will be a brand new school.
Right.
Bristol Aggie certainly is an attractive school.
Mm-hmm.
I never would have thought that you have that kind of thought as to that you want to keep these students or get students to attend the high school, even the other 4 that judging by a book by its cover was something that was important to you guys.
Yeah. Well, athletics and activities are
Yep.
very important to families and very
Right.
important to students. And if you take our stadium, for example, when I first arrived 3 years ago, everybody referred to it as the football field,
Yep.
the football stadium, and I have broken that that narrative
Okay.
pretty quickly because of the fact that it's also a showplace for our marching band. When we have unified athletics like unified track for our Special Olympics athletes and as well as our unified partners, it's a place for them to perform. Cheerleaders perform there. We've started playing lacrosse games and soccer games in the stadium because we want it to be seen as a community hub. But what's unfortunate is that the stadium it's tired.
Sure.
We have light poles that anecdotally came from a dog track in Taunton, back in the 70s.
That's right. Now that you say that, I remember that.
And so, I think that as we continue to strive for fiscal responsibility, but we also get stronger fiscally.
Yep.
I'd like to work with the school committee to see about some improvements to our facilities.
It's such a central point with all those that you just said. The people want something they can be proud of, and sometimes it's just new lights, like you said. It's not necessarily reseeding or resodding the field,
Right.
But a place that is a central meeting point.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yep.
One of the things that I might be way off base, but I'm sure there are academically challenged classes that you have. And this is kind of a vague question, but this is kind of assuming that you have areas that need improving. But what is your plan to face with these academic challenges to enhance the performance?
Our the performance of our students is why we're in business.
Yep.
They are our primary customers, and their families and the other stakeholders are as well. And we're in a very data-driven society.
Sure.
Whether it's budgets or whether it's elections or all those types of things. There's so much technology now that's available in terms of providing data that I've been really proud of our team, our principals, assistant principals, my team at central office, as well as members of the teaching faculty who are really using data to zero in on how can this particular student be better. So we use tools like STAR, IXL. MCAS is still for the pre-K through 8 students is still a great indicator, and what that does is it allows us to cater supports to students individually. When education first came into play many moons ago, it was very much of a factory model. Students sitting in rows and just the sage on the stage. Now a lot of our teachers are more of the guide on the side.
Yeah.
You'll see students that are sitting in groups. You'll see students that are collaborating on projects. And I think that being able to utilize that data helps us to help each student as much as we can individually.
Sure. So you actually get right down to the individual student as opposed to just saying our junior class is rated this. You actually cater towards, again, an individual student and helping them perform better.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yep.
You don't often hear that. I think people judge by the success, and as personally I think it's wrong, how many people graduate, how many people leave the school. MCAS, which I don't know how you feel about it. I'm kind of glad that it's gone for at least the high school version. But yeah, being driven by scores today as opposed to what you can do for an individual student. I think that's awesome that you guys do that.
Yep.
One of the things that we've often heard is, you've mentioned this earlier about an open door policy, but how do you plan to engage with parents in the community to ensure their voices are heard in the decision-making process? And what I mean by that is we had a town meeting just in June, and as you well know, the budget was a topic of conversation. That's one avenue that people can voice their opinions and they be heard. What else do you guys do to get people to have public input into the ways that, yeah, we're proud of our athletes, we're proud of the academic version, we're proud of cooking class, if that's what you still offer, but what are you guys doing to get people to get more involved in giving you feedback and asking questions that get answered?
Well, being here today is,
Sure, is
one step
step. Yeah.
in that direction. And again, as we mentioned off camera, I really applaud you and the selectmen for providing this forum for, for your residents to be able to learn more. And hopefully it will prompt questions, which, whether it's via email or via phone call, we would certainly welcome. I pride myself on trying to be as visible and accessible as possible, and it's not uncommon for me to be at Alice's last stop, getting a bite to eat before a school committee meeting, and have somebody recognize me from my green suit, and come up and ask a question. And we love that type of community interaction. But what I will also say, Peter, is that I think we've really harnessed the power of social media.
Yes.
I know that there are a lot of people that have concerns about the negativity on social media, but there's positivity and negativity
Absolutely.
in every realm.
Yep.
I really applaud our principals and our assistant principals for the way that we are celebrating through social media the things that are happening in our buildings. Whether it be that the debate team, won the Massasoit League championship, or one of our students from the high school received an important scholarship.
Yep.
The athletics, the honor society, we're committed to putting as much positivity out there, because what I've come to learn in terms of being a leader in schools, whether it be as a building leader or the last 3 years as superintendent, is I'll say it this way: negativity is going to happen.
Right.
We're dealing with kids.
Yeah.
Kids are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But if you've created an ocean of positivity, it's like throwing a pebble into the ocean. Whereas if you don't have that culture of positivity, it's like throwing a bowling ball
Sure.
into a puddle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you talk about the students in the. Actually, it's going to go down the road that we're going to go down later, so I'll retract that.
Okay.
They can edit that part out.
All right.
Is there a program in place to have students do community work? And I have an example here. When I was in high school, just a few years ago, one of the things that was done for kids who were not going to necessarily go on to college, because back then there was a very much those who were continuing and those who were going to go into
Yep.
the real world.
Two separate and distinct paths.
Right. Yes. And one of the things that they encouraged students who, especially the ones that were not going to go on to college, was to get involved in community work. And I used to think that should be open to the entire school, not just encouraging students who, like I said, that real world mentality. Is there a program in place that you guys have to encourage students to participate in community events? I know when there's the arts festival, the marching band shows up, different things like that.
Right.
But one of the examples that I have is the library is coming online pretty soon. And one of the things that I had mentioned is, could we get students from the high school to help transport books? Because that is very time consuming, it's very heavy, and as you can never have enough volunteers do something like that. So what is it that you guys do to encourage students to participate in community events? And is there not a reward for it? I don't mean it that way. Maybe personal satisfaction, but something that they can say on a resume, I've done this and this and this.
Yeah, I mean, I alluded to the driving toward 2030
Yep.
strategic plan, and one of the pillars of that is that we have a commitment to make our students future ready. And I think a huge component of being future ready is being a contributing member of your community.
Sure.
And so our high school and really our middle schools as well have a lot of opportunities for, and not only opportunities, but expectations
Yep.
for community service. I think, for example, the National Honor Society. One of the pillars of the National Honor Society is service. And if our students are not out serving in the community, then they're putting their membership in the National Honor Society at
Yep.
risk. But one of the things that I've been extremely proud of, that's developed under my tenure is the relationship with our career and technical education programs. And so I think back to a couple of years ago, Ms. Nardozzi, who is a Dighton resident,
Yeah.
and she's also our engineering teacher. She worked with the folks at the Council on Aging to design a new ramp and
Yeah.
design a new patio. Those are ways that we can save the community money
Sure,
because,
absolutely.
if you have an engineer or an architect that's designing that stuff, it comes at a cost.
Right.
And for us, it's such a relevant experience for our students. And as you talked about, the intrinsic value of riding by the Council on Aging, even 10 years from now, and saying to your kids or saying to your siblings, I helped design that, I helped do that. And being active, contributing members of the community is very important to me, and it's very important to us. And it ties in with, and I know that we'll address this a little bit later in the interview, but We Are DR is really how we want our school system to be connected to both of our towns.
Sure. It's funny that you mentioned the ramp and it's received great accolades. Nobody knows. It's funny because we had an interview with the Selectmen, and the Lions Club was there presenting everything they've done for the town, and they're not showboaters, but I'm going to guess 95% of the people had no clue or no idea that the Lions Club supported all these things.
Sure.
There are things like eyeglass returns, things like that are out there.
Right.
But building of the pavilion that we have, maintaining that pavilion, that's all done through the Lions Club, and that's just a minor example. But do you get the word out there that our students participate in these things? Our students built or designed that patio? Because up until today, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we try to harness as much of the power of social media as possible.
Yes.
We inundate the Taunton Gazette and the Sun Chronicle, and local TV outlets with as many press releases as possible.
Sure.
And sometimes, depending on what it is that they're covering, they may or may not have time for us. But we're consistently pushing stuff out there. I recently, or I say recently, back at the end of the school year, I went over to Dighton Middle School because the student council was doing a clothing drive, and that was something that certainly was well known within that particular school.
Right.
The principal would put it in the Friday newsletter that would go out to the parents and the families. But we did some photos, and we made sure that we put it out on social media so that community members would be able to see
that
the
you
good
guys
things that are going on.
that. Social media is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I'm telling you something you don't know. It's a good way to get word out there, and certainly through a segment like this. But I just wish that there was other ways or that we could get it out there that students participate in community things, because we don't see it at street level. And this does happening, and like I mentioned, nobody wants to showboat it, but you certainly judge by your students.
Right.
You're saying they were guests in your school. It's so true. But how do you recognize these students for this participation that they do? Is there a form of awards, school nights that you pass out other awards? Is it mentioned that the tech department built or helped assemble this? BP does a very good job at that. And we're going to talk about the budget in a minute. And I'm kind of all over the place, but one of the things that there's always indirect cost, as well as people complain that the school department's budget is very high, but it also saves us money in other areas, such as the design of the patio.
Right.
But people don't realize that there is a return on some of these investments.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, obviously the high school has a very powerful celebration of excellence at the end of the school year.
Okay.
And it's not only just the seniors who are moving on to the next level. It's we also have other students that are recognized for community service. We also do celebrations for National Honor Society and for the National Technical Honor Society for our vocational students to be acknowledged. But I think that I think we're doing more and more things to try to put the celebrations out there.
Sure.
So, for example, when I arrived in the district 3 years ago, I worked with the school committee leadership to start having what we refer to as spotlight meetings. So, there's one particular meeting that's devoted to Dighton Elementary School. We have the rudimentary aspects of the school committee agenda, the Pledge of Allegiance, the approval of minutes, and all those types of things. And we have, we'll have other business, but the main portion of the meeting is to shine a spotlight on Dighton Elementary School or Beckwith Middle School. And the principal, the assistant principal, the teachers, and the students come and they talk about how folks are growing socially, academically, and it's been a really well received concept.
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to see community involvement in any group. Everything from the selectmen do things to political parties do things, the employees here at town sponsoring things. But anyway, can you explain how, getting to the budget?
Sure.
Can you explain how you manage the school budget effectively while prioritizing educational needs? And what I mean by that, well, it's kind of self-explanatory, but you have constraints. As you're well aware of Dighton's financial situation that we're in. And how is that budget always in the back of your mind?
Constantly.
Is it?
It is.
Okay.
It really is. Because, I don't live in Dighton.
Right.
I live in Pawtucket.
Yep.
But in Pawtucket, I'm still concerned about, my tax dollars.
Sure.
So, I'm very cognizant of that. When I was principal in Attleboro, I was an Attleboro resident at the time. So the decisions that were being made about the budget or decisions that were being made about, possibly building or renovating Attleboro High School, those had a direct impact on me. And while I don't live in either of our two towns, I do understand the immense responsibility that we have to be fiscally responsible.
Right.
And I will say that at the night of town meeting, there are 3 jobs that I would never want to have, and that's Kevin Smith's, yours, and Ralph Vitaco's.
Yeah.
But town meeting, unfortunately, the format of it doesn't really allow for like point counterpoint.
No.
And there are some folks who receive some information. It's not necessarily complete information, but they form opinions around that. And so, I do appreciate the opportunity to talk about budget. And again, it is something that is in the front of our minds constantly. And as I mentioned at a selectmen's meeting, and I also made reference to this at town meeting, our issue really needs to be with the state. This is not
yeah.
this is not us versus them in terms
Right.
of the town versus the district. Inflation has gone up on an average of 5% since the pandemic, and we receive less than 1% increase from the state year over year.
Right.
So that 4+% increase attributed to inflation is being put right back on the backs of the towns.
Sure.
And we're very fortunate that Senator Dooner and Representative Thurber are very sensitive to our needs. The Chapter 70 funding formula is broken. It's it needs to be reevaluated because cities and towns are getting taxed, no pun intended, with significant financial
Sure.
burdens. And I feel that we have a collaborative process. I mean, obviously, it could be better, but having conversations and meetings at town hall with you, with Mr. Vitaco, appearing before FinCom, appearing before the Board of Selectmen, those are ways that we are trying not to surprise anybody. And but it is something that is certainly a priority for the school committee, and it's a priority of mine.
Right. Have you ever had to make the decision that a field trip is just not in the budget, so we're not going to do it?
Absolutely.
Does that happen more often than not? Or I'm not saying that it's not in the budget all the time, but it gets right down to that level?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times, that'll happen in the spring because, we do the best we can with a budget forecast.
Yeah.
But, if you take an example, last September, the irrigation system at the high school failed. That ended up being an unexpected $100,000 fix
Yeah.
that we needed to address. And there's not a lot of cushion in our budget to just be able to allocate resources for something like that. So as we look at what we refer to internally as our run rate, as we look at our run rate when we start getting into November and December, there are times where, in January through the spring, we have to turn to our principals and turn to our staff and say, I'm sorry that this was in the plans, but life got in the way.
Right.
Unfortunately, what's really happened for us the last 2 years, it's had an impact on our staff.
Yes.
We've in my tenure, we've had over 30 positions that have been on the chopping block, and some of them have been teaching positions, some of them have been paraprofessional positions, clerical positions, custodial positions. I know that the question that does pop up at town meeting is, administrative staff, and it's a two-way street because if you want your high school to be better, if you want your high school to have increased enrollment, then you have to put as much time, effort, energy, and resource into making the high school be as strong as possible. And I think that we now have the administrative team at the high school that's capable of that. Certainly, if we get into dire straits again, like we did, back in FY24 and FY25, if we have to cut, at the administrative level or at the central office level, I'll work with the school committee and make the decisions that are in the best interest of the district.
That was one of the questions that came through the internet is the administration too top heavy? We've had that discussion before, and obviously we don't tell you how to run your schools, how to manage your budget. It's a number is decided based on the school committee, your subcommittees, yourself, the town, the selectmen, the town administrator, and hopefully we can work within that budget number. Like I had told you earlier, we when this was out that we were going to have you on, we received a lot more questions. Some positive, some not so positive.
Yeah, it comes with the job.
It comes with the job. Leading up to that, who determines? Most people don't know, but how is the budget determined? All they know is they go to town meeting, there's this huge number that they can't wrap their arms around, and either they vote yes or no. But there's a lot of detail and a lot of work that goes into that number. What is
Absolutely.
the process on your end that gets us to the town meeting with that number?
So it'll start in late October,
Right.
early November. Once we safely get school under sail,
Yep.
and have a chance to exhale, then we start tasking our budget managers, and our budget managers are primarily our principals, but also the facilities director, the director of instructional technology. We task our department heads, if you will, to start looking at their budget and what their projected needs are for FY27 and ways that we can find efficiencies for FY27. One of the exercises that we went through in my first actual budget cycle was literally a line by line and a 3-year analysis of what we've spent in certain categories. So, for example, it's kind of lazy budgeting procedure to just say, there's been $2,000 in the postage line every year. We're just going to keep $2,000 in there. Well, we've become much more technologically savvy. We're sending out report cards digitally. We're not mailing newsletters anymore. Right. So if the amount of postage that we used was 50% of the postage that was allocated in the line, then we have a responsibility to come up with a more true number.
Sure.
And so when we were forced to do that going into FY24, it really helped us in terms of kind of setting a new baseline for how our departments should budget. So in late November, early December, we will start having conversations with the budget subcommittee of the school committee about our current run rate. So for this particular November, December, it'll be where are we in terms of FY26? Did we have a significant irrigation failure? Or did we have to replace the fire panel at DMS at the tone of $35,000 like we did last year? And so we keep the budget subcommittee apprised of where we are currently, but also we will start forecasting what things look like for the future. We have a responsibility to the state to submit enrollment reports on October 1st. Those enrollment reports on October 1st forecast what's referred to as the cherry sheet. It used to come out on a cherry-colored sheet of paper.
The name came from? Okay.
Yep, that's why it's called the cherry sheet. And we still, the Mass Municipal Association, the Department of Revenue, they still call it the cherry sheet. And so not only do we have conversations with budget subcommittee, but we try to involve the advisory finance committee. So as a part of our regional agreement, we're obligated to have an advisory finance committee that has to have representation from the town of Dayton and has to have representation from the town of Rehoboth. Sue Lorenz has been very active in that. Nancy Goulart has been very active in that, and we're very appreciative of their service. We invite them to budget subcommittee meetings to hear those updates in real time. But obviously, Leo Brem, who's our business administrator, he and I will come over and we will meet with you. We will meet with Mr. Fataco, and we'll start getting a sense of, what the town's projections are, and we'll start to try to give you a sense of anything that we have on the horizon.
So I've heard things like before. This is your budget. This is the school committee's budget. Does it actually end up by being a combination of both?
Well, by statute, the school committee approves the budget. So,
But it approves what you give them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So as we go through the process, we have slideshows that we modify as we go along. So in mid-February, it'll be the superintendent's preliminary budget. And then late February, it'll be the superintendent's recommended budget.
Yep.
And then when we get to the budget hearing in mid-March, it'll be the superintendent's proposed budget.
Okay.
But once it's voted on by the school committee, it becomes the school committee approved
Budget.
Yeah. we're very fortunate that our school committee is very involved and they're very knowledgeable. But I've been impressed that they don't micromanage us.
Right.
So they will get into the weeds with us and get very granular in terms of some of the detail that they're looking for. By statute, it's the school committee's budget.
Yep.
But that's not an avenue for me to hide behind and say,
Right.
well, it's not my budget.
Right.
It's because it is.
Sure. The Department of Education at the federal level is disbanded? Going to be? How does that affect us here in Dayton?
I think that other than the federal funding,
Is that it?
which, fortunately was resolved, in the last week or so, we really don't see the trickle down.
No.
More of our oversight is from the state.
Yep.
And it's a great question for me just to add one more layer of the budget transparency, if you will. A reduction in enrollment doesn't change what we're legally responsible to
Right.
provide. When you think of our students who have special needs and they're on IEP plans, or some of our students that are on 504 plans, those services cost a tremendous amount of money. And the state has seen an increase of almost 25% in special education expenses over the last 3 years.
Okay.
And those costs and the cost of fuel and the cost of, just the inflationary costs are things that don't change no matter how many students that we have in the district.
Sure.
So it is a balancing act,
Yeah.
but more of our oversight is really at the state level. Yeah.
We've often heard state mandates that are not funded. And to me, it sounds like a cop-out. If a state mandates something and we have to do it, it'd be nice if they funded it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't happen. And it's part of everyday language that we have these things put out by the state that we have to do. Keeping with the budget, are there other avenues of bringing in funds besides town taxes?
Absolutely. One of the things that our school committee made as a very prudent decision back in FY24 was to approve my request to create a position called the treasurer grant writer. So
Okay.
it's a hybrid position.
Sure.
And so we are obligated to have a treasurer.
Yep.
We were outsourcing those services at a particular amount of money in the budget. But then we also were paying vendors to be able to help us to write grants because these vendors have their finger on the pulse of the buzzwords and the terminology and the documentation that you're looking for to get a grant. And as we did a cost benefit analysis on it, we turned to the school committee and said, listen, if you give us the opportunity to implement this new position, we can bring in those services to the district, which when you bring services into the district, there's a higher level of oversight and accountability because they answer to the superintendent, they answer to the school committee. So you tend to get more bang for your buck. And I'm so proud of the decision that the school committee made to grant that request because our competitive grants have risen tremendously. At the end of this particular school year, so in mid-June of 2025, we gave a report to the school committee that we had pursued and gained almost $750,000 in grants.
Wow.
And those are not grants that are obligated to us by the federal government. Those are competitive grants. So, an email comes in and says, hey, this grant is available to possibly get new machinery in one of your CTE shops. We now have an expert in-house, Renee Morby, who does a great job of pursuing those grants. And back a year ago, Renee got us close to $500,000.
Wow.
And this year she got us to close to close to $750,000.
Nice.
So I told her, I said, the pressure's on. I said, we want to see seven figures.
Sure, absolutely.
So, those are ways that we're constantly trying to reduce the stress that it puts on the taxpayers.
Right. Have you thought of, or does this even happen, fees to play sports, to participate in certain groups, avenues like that to bring in income?
We do have a fee structure for activities and athletics, both at the middle school and at the high school level.
Okay.
We were just asked by the school committee, I would say a little over a year ago, to do a comparison in terms of local communities, and we're pretty close in terms of local towns and what
they
those districts are charging. Now you have districts like Taunton as an urban, or New Bedford as an urban. They get a lot of federal funding that we don't get, so they're able to offset activity fees and sports fees. We don't have that luxury.
Right.
Our new director of athletics and activities, Matt McKinnon, has really done a nice job of doing some comparison shopping, so to speak, in terms of not only the league that we play in, but also member towns that are close by. And we propose to the school committee on an annual basis a fee structure.
Right.
And that fee structure has gone up a little bit in the last couple of years, and it's not a significant impact on the budget, but it is a sign that we are constantly trying to assess that financial structure.
That must be a wrenching decision, because you get to the point where you have the kids who can afford it and those who can't.
We do have, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, it's okay.
we do have reduced rates
Yep.
for students that are on free and reduced lunch.
Okay.
So
It does carry across.
it does. Now that the state has, for the last several years, approved free lunch for all students, it's really important that our families are filling out the free and reduced lunch application, because that's how we get our federal funding, and that's how families can benefit from it as well. So we don't ever want to have cost get in the way of a student pursuing their dreams.
Right.
And whether it's working with them on a payment plan, or whether it's partial fee waivers based on free and reduced lunch, we have ways.
Good. Okay. To me, it's important that everybody be given the opportunity, and I hate to see somebody not be able to participate in something just because the funds are not there at home, the home level.
Yep.
The school budget seems high and goes up more than inflation. We just kind of talked about that.
Yep.
Student enrollment is slightly down. This is one that came from the internet. How can we justify the amount of money that you pay, that the town pays per student? Kind of a vague question, but with the enrollment slightly down, the cost more than up, the biggest chunk of, which is every community, our town's expenses, is school. We as a town look for ways to cut. We receive cuts from the fire, from the police, from the highway department, and one of the few increases came to the school department. And I think some people think it's above average. So how can you justify? I know you're in contract talks, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Not that we can get that involved in it, but
well, the negotiations are done. So
they're done. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll be able to comment.
Okay. So again, how can you justify the added expense that the town takes on because of the school department?
Well, when I was at a Board of Selectmen meeting in the spring, you reminded me that we have the biggest chunk of the town's budget, and I wasn't being flippant or disrespectful in response. I said I believe we also have the biggest responsibility in terms of developing the next generation of our taxpayers here in town. the concerns about a drop of enrollment and not having a proportionate change in the financial picture is certainly an understandable conclusion to come to. But I did at town meeting, I did ask folks to consider that over the course of my 3 budgets, and again, I'm using the term "my" there, but over the course of the last 3 school district or school committee budgets, we've had over 30 positions on the chopping block. So while I feel for both the police chief and the fire chief, who, by the way, we have a very tremendous respect for and a great working relationship with. While I feel for those departments, having to make cuts this year, the school department faced those very serious cuts in the first 2 budgets, that were under my tenure. And as I mentioned before, whether you open a building with 5 students, 55 students, or 555 students, the lights and the other fixed costs, those are not going to change.
Right.
We do benchmark pretty closely with neighboring towns in terms of state averages. So again, not to keep throwing stones at the state, but until such time as the folks on Beacon Hill either change the Chapter 70 funding formula, or just give us more money based on an increase in inflation, we're gonna see this year over year.
Sure. One of the things you came in very close to what you said you were going to come in at, and thank you for that. It was important to the town. We, as selectmen and the town administrator, are already looking at 2 budgets down the road. To me, 27, although it's still in the infancy stage, is in the books. One of the things that we are doing is negotiating with, we just got done negotiating with contracts for wages and other items in the budgets for the school, not the school, the highway, the police, the fire, and the employee union here at Town Hall. Budget talks. Was there a 13% increase in wages?
No. So the question that
just a rumor that's out there.
The question that you provided me in advance says were they offered a 13% increase, and they were not offered anywhere near double figures to start with. They came in at 555 to start with, which as you and I both know from dealing with budgets on a consistent basis, that's not 15%.
Right.
It's compounded interest. But no, they were not offered 13%. But full transparency, where we landed was over 10%.
Okay.
But I'd like to just kind of preface it by saying that teacher union negotiations across the Commonwealth in the last 2 years have gotten very ugly.
Sure.
We've seen strikes.
Yep.
And walkouts and a lot of other negative publicity. And, I really have to commend our school committee, our negotiations team from central office and the teachers union as well for, personnel is always personal. But, they kept it professional. They kept it civil. And again, while we are constantly battling, a lack of funding based on inflation, families are seeing inflation in their homes, right. And so what when we concluded negotiations, the first year the increase for the teachers in the first year is going to be 3%, and then we're taking a more innovative approach for FY27 and FY28, where we're utilizing a split. So instead of giving a flat 3% or whatever percent over the course of the entire fiscal year, We're doing a smaller percentage for the first 90 days of the
Okay.
school year, and then another percentage for the next 90 days of the school year. And what that does is it ultimately creates a savings, but it still gets the teachers closer to where they wanted to be.
Sure.
So over the course of the 3-year contract, the aggregate percentage, did go over 10%.
Okay.
But that's something that that our school committee and our negotiating team at central office felt was reasonable based
Right.
on wanting to retain the excellent teachers that we have,
That was one of my questions.
but also being able to be cognizant of of inflation.
Yep. Any suggestions on how we pay for that?
Well, we are going to continue to pursue grants.
Sure.
For every position that we can fund through a grant, it's high 5 figures, low 6 figures.
Right.
When you also factor in insurance and,
Yeah.
and benefits. So even a rookie teacher who's coming in at a pretty low salary on the first step, there's still
yeah.
other fixed costs
Right.
for insurance and benefits, and so just to kind of reiterate what I had said before, we keep pursuing grants to try
Yeah.
to keep other costs
Okay.
down, and again it's an ebb and flow.
Sure.
But as we continue to look, or go through our budget with a fine-tooth comb, and I used the example of postage earlier, we don't want to just have a set number that we just kind of lazily carry over from year to
Right.
year. If we're doing an analysis on what our spending is, and if there is a way for us to save in that particular realm, then we're going to do it.
Okay. Speaking of the contracts that you're doing, what is it that you do to retain these high-quality teachers in our district?
I think it's a lot about culture.
Yep.
I used to say for many years that I never went to work. I always went to school because I was a teacher.
Sure.
And I didn't consider it work, and I still don't consider it work. And I'm coming close to 40 years in the industry. We have a tremendous culture in our district. A lot of the foundations of it were there when I arrived, but a lot of it was building by building. So Dighton Elementary would have a very strong culture, or Beckwith Middle School would have a very strong culture. What I've been committed to, and what I'm very proud of, is how we've taken We Are DR and we've said, listen, we are 2 towns, we're 1 district, and those 5 buildings, the staff in all 5 of those buildings are 1 community. And even though one school might have the mascot of the Lions and another school might have the
Sure.
mascot of the Eagles, we view everybody as future Falcons,
Right.
because we want the focus to be from pre-K all the way through 12 plus.
Yep.
And when I say 12 plus, I'm talking about our students that stay with us past the 12th grade, because we're providing them with transitional services until
Right.
they're age 22. And so I think one of the ways that we are keeping our outstanding staff in district is by showing our appreciation to them. And and I don't mean financially. I mean by the ways that we celebrate them in our newsletters, the way that we celebrate them on social media. But with my district leadership team, I espouse a mantra that we need to be built different. And when I say built different, I don't want us to be the stereotypical principal or assistant principal. I want us to be seen as someone who's visible, approachable, someone who genuinely cares about kids.
Right.
And one of the things that I've been very proud of is, we've been building the bench internally. So we have paraprofessionals who have grown into teacher roles by our support. We have teachers who have grown into administrative certification based on our support. So, I think if you have staff that are in the district that see they have avenues to grow and pursue their goals, it keeps people happy
Sure.
and it keeps them in district.
Yeah. Did they sign the contract yet, or is that just still?
The contract is signed.
Is
Yep.
signed. Oh,
Yep.
awesome.
So we have an MOU signed.
School will start on time.
Yes, it will.
That's awesome. Cool. It's funny because other towns are in the same boat, and not mentioning any, but I've heard one recently saying it's not going as well, and that they're talking strike, which I'm glad that we don't have to go down that road.
No.
Let's get on to other things. Technology is changing at a rapid pace. How do you envision integrating technology into the classroom when it changes by the day? What's here today, what's hot today is social media. Same thing. I mean, something can run with 2 million views and something else. But how do you integrate technology into the classroom when it changes so often?
Yeah, or you can go to a Coldplay concert and have your life completely turned upside down. You touched on the fact that we're always one day behind in terms of technology.
Yeah.
But I have to say that our director of instructional technology, Lauren Harwood, who's been with us for right about a year, has really done a great job of seeking teacher input in terms of ways that we can, reasonably infuse technology into our classrooms to support the students. And during our tenure, we've been able to achieve a 1-to-1 laptop ratio for our students in the middle school and in the high school.
Wow.
We also have devices that are available for every classroom in the elementary schools, but the elementary kids aren't quite accustomed to protecting their technology.
Sure.
So what we do is we keep those in carts,
Yep.
and then the teachers deploy them, as needed. But I'm in elementary classrooms quite frequently, and the students are using those laptops. So, but our assistant superintendent, Dr. Souza, implemented a really novel pilot program last year where our teachers could apply to receive an iPad and a projection screen in their classroom. A lot of our classrooms are already equipped with projection screens, but they're not necessarily linked to an iPad. And Fred did a really nice job of putting together a very small pilot. It was like maybe one per building, where a teacher could make a case for being given an iPad and being able to use that iPad to then project it on the screen. And so we're definitely seeing the benefits of forward-thinking technology.
Great, that's cool.
You had also mentioned AI. And,
Yeah, that was my next question. How do you
I-
guys deal with that?
Well, AI it's a tool
It's here to stay.
that's here to stay. And so back in the 20s and 30s when motor cars were being more and more the norm, folks had to learn and folks had to train, and so we are navigating AI very methodically. We certainly don't want to rush into anything, but we're providing tools for our teachers to be able to be more well versed in the use of AI, and then that's trickling down to the way that they're helping their students understand it, because there's a responsible use of cars, there's a responsible use of any sort of technology, and the responsible use of AI is something that we have.
So you use it as a teaching tool.
Yes.
It's something that has to be taught.
Right.
Do you find students abusing it?
I would say anecdotally, our teachers are not, are not overly concerned about it. But I also think that that's due in part to the fact that some of them are still kind of learning the parameters of it themselves. So as our students, as our teachers become better versed in it, I think that the concerns about the responsible student use is going to increase.
Okay, good. Like I said, it's here to stay, and why not embrace it?
Yeah.
People have asked, a question that came through is, what is the cell phone policy at the high school? Not that we've heard anything, I've heard other schools and everything from Ziploc bags to you can use them. What is the policy at the high school level?
So the policy at the middle school and at the high school is off and away.
Okay.
So, technically it should be powered off and should be either in their backpack or in their pocket. Now, you and I both know any policy, any law is only as good as the people who are charged to
Right.
enforce it. And so, are there some teachers who are more flexible with that policy? Sure.
Yep.
And, unfortunately, that is a disservice to their colleague across the hall who is the one enforcing it, because then you hear, oh, well, Mr. Karen lets us do it, but Mr. Rooney doesn't let us
Right.
do it. So, it's one of the things that I've been very appreciative of our relationship with our teachers union, that, when we mention these things to the president and the vice president of the teachers union, they support us on that.
Good.
And they try through their meetings and through their communications to support the administration on that. But the way it currently stands is off and away.
In a way.
So are students on their phones at lunch?
Sure.
Yes. You talked about unfunded mandates earlier. There is a potential unfunded mandate coming down the line about cell phone bans, and I have mixed feelings on a cell phone ban, to be honest with you. For the better part of 10 years, I had at least one of my children in my building as a principal. My oldest daughter was my student. My middle daughter and my son, they were my students in my high school. And then for the last couple of years, my youngest daughter then started working for me as a high school
that's
teacher.
cool.
And so from a safety standpoint, the first thing that you're thinking about when you have a crisis is, I want to check with my loved ones and make sure that they're
Right.
safe. And if the cell phones are in a pouch or in a locked box
Yep.
across the room, and the teacher gets hurt or the teacher panics, then those students are without their technology.
Right.
However, I think some of the ways to ban cell phones but also have a quick emergency response, I think those things are developing. And if we get a mandate from the state, then obviously we'll work with the school committee. The school committee sets policy.
Yeah.
And we will make sure that we have a policy that meets the expectations of the state,
Yeah.
but also, is palatable to our towns. I mean,
Right.
the students ultimately aren't going to like it,
Right.
but again, that's where the state oversight comes
Sure. We didn't have them as students. At least I didn't.
in. Nor did I.
It's one of those things where once you have it, you can't live without it. And there's an argument on both sides. Hopefully it gets worked out and you have good luck with whatever you guys are going to do. Speaking of cell phone, and you just mentioned the safety, what plans do you have to ensure the safety and well-being of students and staff in the schools? So much has happened. Obviously, there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions to a shooting. All of a sudden, everybody's going to do something. But what is it that you guys do that sets you apart? Not so much sets you apart, but makes the students feel safe, your teachers feel safe, and your parents feel comfortable dropping off their students at school.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both know that there's no such thing as absolute safety. If somebody's got bad intentions, they're always going to seem to find a way.
Right.
But I really can't overstate the relationship that we've built with Dighton Police and Dighton Fire. Chief Nichols and Chief McGee are in constant communication with us. And when I arrived 3 years ago, Deputy Chief Ryan Richards sat down with me and with my team, along with SRO Steve Hathaway, to look at where we were from a crisis response standpoint. And to be honest with you, we were way beyond the curve in a bad way.
Wow.
And very grateful to the taxpayers in Dighton and taxpayers in Rehoboth. We proposed a warrant article for safety and security. It was $100,000,
I remember
and
that.
in Dighton, and I think it was $125,000 in Rehoboth, and that was approved. And that was a game changer for us because we were able to install security cameras in all 5 of our buildings.
Right.
When I first arrived in 2022, the only building that had security cameras was the high school, and that's unacceptable.
Right.
And so with the support of police and fire, with the support of the taxpayer dollars through the warrant article, we now have much safer and secure buildings. We're constantly assessing it. We're constantly looking at the most up-to-date technology, but it's also got to be balanced with what the available funding dollars are. And I think another aspect of safety is emotional safety.
Sure.
And I think that the culture of our district is such that we do everything because of kids. And when our staff feels happy and feels supported, that carries down to the students, and it carries home to their families. And so being able to foster supports and resources for our students and for our staff, creates a level of emotional safety as well.
No, I wouldn't have thought of that aspect of it, but that's true. Okay. It sounds, so you're above the curve now?
Yes.
In a good way?
Yes, in a good way.
It's, like I said, there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions to certain things, but I don't think people used to give it a second thought of dropping their child off at school. And today, it's, are you doing enough? Is technology there to support? Like I said, you said the emotional aspect, which I wouldn't have thought of that. Certainly, the teachers feeling comfortable in a safe environment and the student feeling that they're safe is important. That happened. Okay. DES. Can you tell us the status of it, at least?
Yes. So, I owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to the school building committee. The selectmen approved the school building committee a little over a year ago. And, we've got some experts from the town of Dighton that are on the school building committee. I think about Ruth Teixeira, Bob Perry,
Sure.
they are retired engineers. And they provide some very valuable input to our discussions. You also have retired educators, Lenny Hull and Eliza Kuchar, who are bringing us feedback from the educator side. Very excited that that back on November 14th, the town approved for us to go into feasibility study, and next week. We will officially have an owner's project manager, OPM, on board. And then the next step will be for us to hire an architect to do the design features. And that's where we're really going to see the stakeholders be able to have their voice in the process. So once your OPM and your architect are on board, one of the responsibilities that we have through the MSBA is to have community forums, surveys, and also visioning sessions. And the visioning sessions are ways for us to get community members, teachers, students, administrators, and have them come to one location for the period of 3 to 5 days and talk about what education in Dighton looks like, in 2035, 2045, 2055. Because, again, the current building, the majority of it is over 70 years old.
Yeah.
So no matter what happens with this project, whether it's a renovation or whether it's new construction, we've got to get a minimum of 75 years out of it.
Right.
So those visioning sessions are going to also give the community an opportunity to weigh in on what's important to them.
So we're still in the infancy stage, obviously.
Right.
One of the things with regardless of what happens at DES, whether it be a modification to the building or a new school, a debt exclusion is going to have to happen.
Right.
Whether it's 30 million or 50 million. Given Dayton's history, it will be a challenge to get it passed. What are your plans to achieve this as far as we can get the word out, certainly, but we had a debt exclusion for BP. It failed. We have another one possibly coming up in April, again, going to the well to see if they'll approve another debt exclusion, a debt exclusion. There's one part to the question, and the second part is if it fails, history is not good. If it doesn't fail and it passes, then will a third one or a third attempt be even that much more difficult to get through for the school? So what do you think of a debt exclusion and given the history about how we're going to pay for this addition? What will you do to get a debt exclusion passed?
First of all, I'm gonna be the best salesman that I can
Sure.
possibly be, and that again just ties back to what I feel is one of my strengths, which is visibility, and another strength being communication. I think that it's understandable. As human beings, we look at how things impact us, how things impact our family.
Yes.
And, Dighton, from all appearances, is a wonderful place to live. And so you have folks, as you have addressed when you and I have talked before, your kids had a wonderful experience in the school system.
Right.
But your kids are not in the system anymore,
Right.
and you still live in this town.
Yeah.
You have a lot of folks that love this town and they've lived in this town, and now they're getting to the point where they don't have children in the schools. And so it is completely understandable to look at it and say, my family's not going to benefit from this. I'm going to suffer because my taxes are increased. I'm going to vote no. And that's a completely understandable perspective. When I was in Attleboro and we got a new vote, or got a vote approved for a new high school in Attleboro, one of the things that we heard throughout the entire process was, well, it was good enough for my kid when he went through 15 years ago, or it was good enough for me when I graduated in 1980. I think that folks, don't understand that the power infrastructure that we need to power technology, the boilers that are aging, the windows that are not efficient anymore, the roofs, those things are all things that, even though the bones of the building might be fine, those are things that are really going to, going to change over the course of a building that is, almost 75 years old.
Yep.
And even the 1990s renovations at DES, those are now 30 years old. And so, and I think one of the major differences between the failed BP debt exclusion vote and our upcoming debt exclusion vote, which is probably going to be spring of 27, is that our debt exclusion vote is going to be all about this town, this school district, and our kids.
Yep.
If I'm a resident in any of the district towns in Bristol Plymouth, I don't have as much skin in the game.
No.
I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of community pride in folks saying, my child went through that elementary school. I want what's best for the next generation of kids going through that elementary school. That elementary school is going to increase my property values.
Yes.
That elementary school is potentially going to be built at 50% off based on the amount of money that the state's going to give us. And one of the things that's really important about the MSBA process is the architect and the project manager will present us with a zero action scenario,
Okay.
meaning the debt exclusion fails, we do nothing.
Yep.
The MSBA goes away and focuses on another school district. We will be able to have hard and fast data that when the boiler fails in 2029, or when the subflooring caves in, any day now, it is going to cost you not only this amount of money to repair it, but because of the percentage of the repairs exceeding the appraised value, you're going to have to bring everything up to code.
Sure.
So I know Mr. Gale is a huge advocate for our buildings being accessible for all folks with disabilities.
Yep.
Every bit of that code has to come up to snuff. Every bit of the electrical code, the plumbing code, and so they're going to be able to give us a price tag. And I'll use the Attleboro example. So in Attleboro, the do nothing option was about $190 million. Wow. But again, a massive project.
Sure.
So we're not talking about anywhere near that amount of money for Dighton Elementary School. But we built a new building for $255. So and we got half of that from the state. So if you did nothing, it was going to cost the city of Attleboro nearly $200 million. By passing the debt exclusion, you got a brand new building for $125,000.
Right.
So I think those are things that I have a responsibility to impart to the members of the community in hopes of getting them to understand the big picture and the implications, not only for folks that have school-age children, but also for folks that, like you, who are, still living in this wonderful town.
Sure. The what is the next step? Forget the debt exclusion. Go back to the status of the DES. When will we hear something of substantial as far as this is what they're proposing? Is that still a year away, 2 years away?
I would say it's anywhere from 10 to 12 months away.
Okay, 10 to 12 months.
Because, again, architect has to get hired. That's probably not going to happen until November. And then, the winter is tough.
Yep.
But we will start that process of getting community feedback, having those visioning sessions. And once the architect has a sense of what the community wants, then they'll start coming up with options, and there'll be a renovation option. There'll be an addition renovation option, and then there'll also be a rebuild option as well. And they'll all come with a pretty safe estimate of what those costs are. And you and I both know that a lot of people are clamoring for a renovation.
Yeah.
And that's understandable because it seems as if a renovation is less expensive than new construction. What people don't understand is the phasing.
Yeah.
So it might take us 7 years to get through a renovation.
Right.
And those costs, are going to continue to be impacted by inflation.
Sure.
Whereas if we did new construction and we were able to get it done, in 3.5 years, then you save on some of those costs.
Okay.
So we will make sure that we have a very thorough and concentrated presentation for the taxpayers.
Sure. I'm sure they're looking forward to it as well. It's a big conversation in town. We have 5 or 6 things on the bucket list of fire station, town highway department building, and a few others, and DES is certainly up there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I love a challenge.
Sure.
So and I'm looking forward to to partnering with the school committee, the selectmen, and the town administrator to make sure that we're communicating as many facts as possible.
Either way, we'll see something substantially change in 5 years. whether it be a new school, whether it be an addition, a renovation, something is going to change in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think people want to know that.
Yeah, and you know, what the vote will boil down to is whether we get reimbursed by the state or whether it's going to be completely on the backs of the town.
Right.
And that's really that's the reality.
Sure. Okay. One of the questions that I might be familiar with, and maybe some others, but there's a lot of terminology used today. For example, we mentioned the cherry sheet, and Chapter 70. You were at our annual town meeting, and you mentioned things. And one of the things I had even written down on my notes at that time is, do people know what he's talking about?
That's a great point.
Can you explain some of the things, the terminology that you use, like, for example, Chapter 70, state mandates, what a regional school district is? Because people don't completely understand that concept. And one of the things I really want you to hit on is, we are DR. We hear that a lot, but what exactly does it mean? And, well,
that'll
run away with it.
that'll be a great landing spot for me. But you know, to cover some of the other ones, you know, Chapter 70 is the statute within Mass General Law about how schools are funded, and the funding for the majority of the students comes through the Chapter 70. We also, as a school that has vocational programs through our CTE department, we also receive Chapter 74 funding. That Chapter 74 funding is on top of what we receive for each student for Chapter 70.
Okay.
So to think about it, if you just have your typical student who, you know, they come to school every day and they take their math and their English and, you know, the reading, writing, arithmetic, we receive a certain amount of state dollars for every one of those kids. At our high school, if those students are also enrolled in our vocational programs, we get additional dollars from the Chapter 74 statute. And that is why I have spent so much time focusing on the Chapter 74 programs that we have at the high school, because we get more money for those students, and it is there are amazing programs that are making our students future ready. They're getting relevant experience, whether it's, you know, we have a partnership with the Ford Motor Company, where if our students complete automotive training through our CTE department, that's provided by the Ford Motor Company, we can have students that can go to Tasca Ford in Seekonk and get jobs that, you know, $20 an hour.
Sure.
You know, we actually got a donation from the Ford Motor Company of a new vehicle that our students will be able to learn on. Again, those are ways that we're constantly trying to cut costs or keep costs more manageable in the district. Get more kids into CTE, so therefore we get more money from the state, and pursue grants and pursue donations that help ease some of the tension on the budget. But Chapter 70 is the state funding formula, and as I mentioned before, you know, that formula is broken.
Sure.
That formula came into play prior to the pandemic. You know, inflation wasn't anywhere near as big of a concern, and I'm really pleased that the House and the Senate forced the governor's hand in terms of reconvening a Chapter 70 commission.
Right.
So it's not going to help us for 27.
No.
But I'm hoping that by 28 there'll be a new Chapter 70 funding formula that will put less burden on the towns.
Sure.
In terms of a regional school district, you know, I guess many years ago, probably in the 50s, the Commonwealth was seeing a lot of very small town districts that were struggling from the standpoint of staffing, finances, and so they started talking about regionalizing school districts. So, you know, bring Dighton and Rehoboth together, pool those resources for the benefit of students. And obviously one of the first concerns that folks had was, well, you know, these are big towns, busing is going to cost a lot of money. So what the Commonwealth did was they incentivized regionalization by giving you 100% reimbursement on your transportation.
Okay.
That is no longer
That's no longer the
no
case
longer
because I've seen
100%.
budget lines.
Yes, so in the last couple of years, it's been 85% or so. This year, we're hoping that it's going to be a little closer to 90%. But there is a regional agreement
Yep.
that governs our district, and so it's almost like having 3 districts within one, because you have pre-K through 8 in Dighton, you have pre-K through 8 in Rehoboth, and then you have the high school that we share. So I view it as one community, but we can't take budget dollars from Dighton Elementary and solve a problem at Palmer River Elementary, because the regional agreement
Sure.
governs that the money stays within the town.
Okay.
The money follows the student. And so, the other aspect of a regional school district is that I think is a really attractive aspect of it, is that you have more community support available to you. I have 2 police chiefs that I can consult in terms of security. I have 2 fire chiefs that I can consult in terms
Right.
of security. When we put together, a committee for facilities, we've got retired engineers and builders and contractors in 2 towns.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
gosh,
That's okay.
I have to
It's
edit
dry
that
in
out.
here.
But regional school districts are complex.
Yep.
The budgeting aspect of regional school districts is complicated,
Yeah.
and it's not easily explained. I was an algebra teacher and a geometry teacher for many years, and there were times where my algebra students or my geometry students was looking at me like I had 3 heads because they didn't understand what I was talking about. When I stand up at town meeting and I talk about Chapter 70, you raise a good point that it's something that I think we need to do. I need to do a better job of
Right.
educating our community. But to land on something that is very near and dear to my heart and that I'm very passionate about is We Are DR.
Sure.
As I mentioned before, we're 5 buildings, we're 2 towns, but we're only 1 district. And the horizontal alignment that we're seeing between Dighton Elementary and Palmer River Elementary, between Dighton Middle and Beckwith Middle, is benefiting our staff, and it's benefiting our students. And it's creating a culture and climate that families and kids want to stay in the
Sure.
district. And so they are coming to our high school, which ultimately will help our budget.
Yeah.
We Are DR is not a slogan.
No.
It's words that we live by.
Yeah.
It's a community identity. The district strategic plan of driving toward 2030, as I mentioned at the beginning, is focused on empowering staff so that we can ignite curiosity and learning and shape the future of our students in our district. And so We Are DR encapsulates all of that by harnessing the very powerful culture in 2 outstanding towns.
Right. Just a quick question, and then we can wrap this up. Is it time to renegotiate the agreement with Rehoboth?
Regional agreement hasn't been touched
In years.
since the 80s.
Yep.
There was, before I arrived, a committee called the RAC, the Regional Agreement Committee.
Okay.
And I think that there were some very passionate voices in the room, and that committee fell apart.
Okay.
So other than some minor changes that have been approved at Dighton Town Meeting or at Rehoboth Town Meeting in terms of budget deadlines and
Yep.
different things like that, our regional agreement is
Basically the same.
basically the same.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, if that were to change, if that were to be revisited, it would be a very significant endeavor, and it would take it would take those passionate voices being willing to come together and try to, kind of rise above
Yes.
loyalties
Sure.
or, past,
Yep.
past narratives.
Yep.
And, really try to focus on what's the best agreement for the future of the district.
Great. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you for coming. We
Thank you
certainly
very much.
appreciate it. And
I
I think
appreciate
people
it.
have a better idea of what the school district is all about and what you do and the passion that you have.
Well-
and we appreciate that.
Well, I've said this before, and again, these are not hollow thoughts. I'm very grateful for the communication.
Yeah.
We, as I mentioned before, we have a strong presence on Facebook, Dayton-Rehoboth Regional School District, Dayton Elementary School, and Dayton Middle School. And if you go to the district website, you can find my email address.
Yep.
Sometimes email's easier to express yourself than a phone call.
Yep.
But we welcome phone calls as well. I feel that I'm a servant of both of these towns.
Sure.
And so answering questions and being the face of the district is something that it's an immense responsibility that I
Absolutely.
take very seriously. And I feel blessed to be here.
Good. Well, thank you. This is going to wrap up this session. And next week, we meet with the police chief. So thank you and have a great afternoon.